Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, which is all about OBS mode and how to do a long approach to a runway that perhaps doesn't have ILS frequencies and goodness knows what. You've chosen a runway but you can't lock onto it, you can't get the autopilot to lock onto the runway heading. You can do that via OBS mode. I'm going to show you that. And this is ahead of our live stream tomorrow, because we are going to use OBS mode in that. Our live stream will be at 5 PM UK time tomorrow. I'll be using a little bit of OBS mode in that, not quite as extreme as this that I'm going to show you. But this is, like I said, very useful for runways that don't have ILS frequencies or RNAV frequencies, and you want to lock onto a heading for the runway that you want to land on. So let's not hesitate, let's get on with the video. So I'm going to start us off on the world map because there's something I want to show you. So if you get over the UK, about central-ish UK, you've got Leicester Airport. So it's EGBG. Left click on that and click on zoom to details. I am on the Xbox again recording this. I'm just using a mouse and keyboard with my HOTAS 1. I'm going to set departure from runway 10 or runway 10. So what I'll do there, I think if you actually click Leicester itself as set as departure, no, it sets us off from runway 28, ignore that. So runway 10, we'll depart from there, we'll zoom out, and when I was researching for this video, I was looking for an airport and runway that's slightly off the line we'll be taking towards it. I'll show you what I mean in a moment. And I came across Cranwell, EGYD. And if we zoom in on there, you can see there the different runways, runway 8, runway 1. I want to land at runway 1, which will be off the line. I think we fly towards it at 40 degrees, or 04. And this runway is 01, so we'll use OBS to help line us up on runway 01. So I'm not going to click here and set as arrival. I'll do this in the aircraft itself, in the Cessna 172 with the G1000 NXI. So with that set up, our departure airport, let's go fly. Okay, so we're set up at runway 10, runway 10 at Leicester Airport in the Cessna 172. I've not done it yet, so I will actually put live weather on. I believe it's quite a nice day over at Leicester. It certainly is where I am on the south coast. But yeah, look at that. Lovely. Perfect day for flying. I use my hat switch on the HOTAS 1 to get down to my right G1000. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to set simply a direct to Cranwell Airport. So the way I do this, I click on this button here, top button here, direct to, left click. Gives you a box here you could type in if you've got a keyboard connecting your destination. To do that, I've showed this before in other videos, but click this icon next to the flashing box there. This icon, that's a keyboard icon, keyboard entry icon. If you're on the Xbox, you'll get the big number pad up here. To get rid of that, just press the button next to the X on your controller with the 3 lines. That gets rid of that. Now I can simply type it in with my actual physical keyboard. So EGYD, yeah, make sure that Cranwell comes up here. Left click that icon again to get rid of keyboard entry mode. I can zoom in a bit there. As you can see, Cranwell, I can go down here to press enter. Click it again when activate is flashing. Now, it's showing these lines because I was practicing this and I had left OBS mode on. Make sure under CDI that you've got... left click, if you've got OBS on, you probably won't if you're not be messing with it. But make sure under CDI that you've got GPS mode on. And you can see that by zooming in, and you can see GPS here. So that was good practice. If we go back to this now, this is what you should be seeing if you have GPS on by default. A purple line here going from your departure airport over to Cranwell. I'm going to zoom up on this range knob to show you. And there's our arrival airport, our destination airport, Cranwell. I've not set any runways up, any vectors for that. It's just a direct to. We'll be doing that later via OBS. What I will do is put my range button, the range. This will be good because we'll be doing this tomorrow, so I can explain this now. Your range circle. Let's zoom in a bit there so you can get a better view of it. You can see that it's showing 10 nautical miles. If I zoom out of the map, obviously that increases 15, 25. I put it down to, for me, my preference is 7.5 nautical miles. When our destination airport gets nearer, that's when I'll engage OBS mode. I'll talk about OBS mode more in a moment when we're up in the air. Coming back to our left G1000 here, you can see we're just about, what, 40 feet above ground sea level there. Thought it was more, this airport. I'm just going to play safe. I'm going to put my altitude, autopilot altitude, to 1500 feet. It's what I want my autopilot to climb to. I've covered this in other videos. So when I click autopilot, it's going to climb up to 1500 feet. I'm going to use flight level change. I'm not going to explain this again because I've explained it in other videos. I'll link the video where I discuss this in more depth. Basically, you click flight level change mode and nose up here to set the speed that you want your aircraft to maintain when autopilot's turned on. And whatever speed you set there, whatever your aircraft is doing, the nose of the aircraft pitching up in this case, your climb will be dependent on the speed I set there. Go and look at the video I linked for flight level change mode. That explains it in more depth. So I'm going to set mine. It's good practice to do this. I prefer flight level change mode when I'm climbing under autopilot. That way it doesn't go too slow and you're not in danger of stalling the aircraft. So it will maintain 80 knots. So we're all set up for the flight. Okay, so with all that set up, we've got live weather selected. When I get up in the air, I've covered this in other videos. I'll link sort of a very newbie guide to autopilot, what autopilot does and nav mode does. It will follow our course. But that's what I'll be doing. I'll be selecting autopilot when we're up in the air and nav mode, and it will follow our course that we set. So let's throttle up. Release the parking brake. Get to our typical 60 knot speed. Let's come down to this view so we get a better view of our instruments. Get to around 60 knots, or just over. That will do. Up we go. Get back to our normal view now. I'm just going to trim up a little bit so I can relieve pressure on my joystick. I'm going to come down to this view and click autopilot. It will now climb to our 1500 feet at 80 knots. And I'm going to click on nav mode to follow our course. And with all going well, the aircraft will turn to the left in this case to follow our course we set before. All very simple. Now we're up in the air, let me chat a little bit about OBS mode. Yep, all seems okay. So when we get nearer, like I said before, to our destination airport, I'm going to click on OBS mode down here, this button here, left click. Don't do it yet, but left click there for OBS mode. With this knob, this CDI knob, this triangular looking knob, I'm going to change, let's zoom in a bit, this reading here to 10 degrees. The runway is 01, so just add a 0 to that. That will be 10 degrees. That will change our purple line, or C on line here. It will put it to roughly around here. At that point, the autopilot won't know what to do. We'll have to disengage autopilot, fly back towards the purple line. It looks purple to me. Purple line, and then re-engage autopilot. And if you've got nav mode selected, it will just follow your course 01, and it should give us a perfect lineup and a long approach to the runway. Very useful. I have checked with Cranwell. There's no ILS. There is an ILS for something like runway 28, I think, or 29, but nothing for 01, runway 01. So in this case, OBS is very useful. We can actually line ourselves up with pretty much a spot-on approach to the runway, as you'll see later. We'll let it get up to our altitude, let it get established on our course. We've got quite some way to go. So let us just get ourselves established. Like I said, very useful OBS. It's something I'll be using a lot from now on. There's different ways of getting your runway heading. You could go, I'm not going to do it here now, but you can go to your ATC, ask for your various runways, the ATIS, or you can select basically. Let's just see, nearest airport list. I'll just show you this. And then airports further from you. Wait till you can see Cranwell. If it comes up here, it may not come up here. May not come up here. But basically you could select one of these airports. Doesn't matter in this case because I'm not going to show you. But then you can actually listen into the ATIS to get the active runway. And then you can set your OBS that way. I prefer doing it from the world map, it's easier. Think of a flight that you would like to take, look at the runway heading that you would like to land on, and then you can set OBS that way. Okay, are we established at our 1500 feet? We are. I'm just going to throttle back a little bit so I don't over-rev the engine. It's a fairly long flight. What I'll do here with the magic of YouTube, I'll do a quick cut and bring you back when we're nearer to our destination airport. Okay, so we're getting somewhat nearer to our destination airport. It's just coming into view here on the map, by the way. I've still got my range circle, keep this in mind, especially for tomorrow night, at 7.5 nautical miles. When this airport, EGYE, comes into the circle, that's when I'll start setting up OBS over here. Once again, what I'll be doing, I'll be clicking OBS. I'll be using the CDI knob here to get our bearing here to 10 degrees, or 010, which will be the heading for our chosen destination runway, for the actual runway itself. Now, there's various ways of doing this. You could actually line up the heading bug here, this blue thing here, to your current heading by mousing up in this case. You could do that, and then you can actually click on, take off nav mode and actually go on to heading mode. It will just stick on that heading. I prefer to keep it on nav mode, and in this case, doesn't really matter because this ping line, once we start messing with OBS, this purple line rather will be around here. It'll be in sort of that direction. We'll have to disengage autopilot anyway to get towards it, and then re-engage autopilot with nav mode already pre-selected. I'm not going to turn nav mode off. It will just follow our new heading right up to our runway, as you'll see. It sounds a bit complex, but once you get used to it, it's not. Let's take a view outside at the glorious English countryside. Look at the weather. Perfect flying conditions. I hope it's a bit more diverse tomorrow when we do our live stream, because it's absolutely beautiful if you get rough weather. We'll have to see. If it's like today, we'll just have to go with it. Perfect for flying, of course. Perfect flying conditions. Very little wind by the looks of things. If I'm looking outside my window, there's very little wind. Anyway, back to this. We're coming up this airport. Like I said, once it's within this circle range, we will go over to our left G1000 and start messing with OBS. And you'll see the autopilot going a little bit berserk. What will happen is, once this purple line comes here, The autopilot simply won't know what to do. It'll just simply maintain the last heading it was on and actually just fly us into the middle of nowhere. But I'll show you a way around that. And I know people are hesitant with this NXI mod. It's still in the process of being updated. I still say get used to it now. It could be updated overnight and you lose your default G1000s. So get used to it now is my advice. It's coming into our range circle. This airport here. And that will do. No rush here. I'm going to go down here, left click my OBS button. I'm going to put, like I said, that range. As you can see there, I have to mouse down to get it to 010, 10 degrees. And as you can see, our autopilot's screaming at me because I've still got it on nav mode. But in this case, it really doesn't matter, as you'll see. It's going the other way, that's fine. The autopilot, I mean. So 10 degrees, that will do. And as you can see now, that's our autopilot's just going to carry on in that heading. It's just going to basically, as you can see, it's going to go this way roughly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to disengage autopilot. If I can find my mouse. Mouse went. I can do it from there. Disengage autopilot. I've got control of the aircraft. I'm going to swing it to the right, try and maintain our altitude. I'm going to bank, swing it. People are going to love that, aren't they? I'm going to bank to the right. It's funny what people pick up on my videos. It's just my way of saying things. So I'm going to intersect the purple line. And once we get nearer to that, I'm simply going to re-engage autopilot. Because I've got nav mode still on, it will follow our new course. Which will be that one there, of course. I told you it's very different to what we had it. So there we go. Let's straighten up there. And as you'll see, this just works perfectly. Perfectly, and it gives you pretty much a perfect approach towards your given runway. Especially handy, like I said, if there's no ILS and you can't lock onto it. This is a way of actually getting your autopilot to lock onto it. Yes, you do have to disengage autopilot to do this part. Depends how much. If it was only 10 degrees difference, like tomorrow, bit of a spoiler here, in our live stream, we will not have to disengage autopilot because I'm only going to make a slight change in the OBS. So here, hopefully, we'll see tomorrow. That's what's happened in practice anyway. But with this one, yes, disengage your autopilot, fly back towards the purple line. Once I get nearer to that, I'm going to show you. Simply going to re-engage autopilot. So we're somewhat approaching it. We'll give it a little bit more time. Just keeping an eye on my mouse cursor. It's been playing me up a little bit today. It's more to do with my TV. It's a terrible old TV. I really need to replace it for playing Xbox Flight Simulator. We're near that purple line. I'm going to click the autopilot, re-engage it. You will see it will re-establish itself back on. I'm hands off. The autopilot will re-establish itself back onto that purple line. Now on a heading of 01, or 10 degrees rather. As you'll see. And I believe that's our destination airport, is it? And the runway, you should be able to see it soon. You should be able to see that we're at a good approach, on a good approach line to runway 01. Is that 01 there? I believe that's it there. So as you can see, yeah, that is it. That's our runway. As you can see, it's establishing us on a good approach line for our runway. Do apologise, I've had a long week at work, so my mind is a bit fuddled more than usual. Yeah, that's our runway. Cranwell Airport, as you can see, 7.18 nautical miles out. Should actually tell us that. Yeah, pretty much here as well. So I'm going to throttle back. Get my RPM into that white arc there roughly, and that should bring our speed down. So this white taper on the speed ribbon, when we hit that we can go to flaps 1. Slightly off. I mean, it's we're pretty much on a good approach there. Once I get flaps established, I'm just going to click off autopilot and fly this myself. Manually fly it. Doesn't bring up GPS, of course. There's no frequencies for ILS or GPS at this runway. I believe there is for a runway, I believe it's 28, one of the other runways, or 29. Don't remember exactly from memory. But not for runway 01. There we go. Good speed for flaps 1. Check outside my left window to make sure my flaps have come down. They have engaged. And they have. I can see the runway. I'm going to manually fly this now. Autopilot off. Got full control. Easy peasy. So like you see, I've got a long approach, and you know, depending on when you set up that OBS, you could have even a longer approach or shorter approach. That to me is pretty much what I wanted, this kind of length. Let's just bring our speed back a touch there. Gonna try and use the throttle to descend. And I go to flaps 2 now. Compensate for that flare. With trim. That's fine. Back to where I want to be. Easy peasy. Now just a matter of coming down onto the runway. So there you go. If you wanted if you're finding that, you know, you're a bit disappointed because your favourite airport doesn't have ILS frequencies, then OBS is pretty much a good choice to line yourself up on your given runway. But you can do that by charts, by ATC to find your runway, or by the world map runway heading. Whichever you prefer, there's a variety of ways to do that. And let me know, are you all looking forward to the live stream tomorrow night? Should be good fun, hopefully. I'll be teaching a few tricks. Direct 2 actually has more applications, and there's actually something I didn't mention before, but you could actually just set up an approach to this runway, and you got visual approaches now in the NXI. Maybe I'll do a future video on that. That's a slightly easier method. And dependent on the visual approach, it will give you a good lineup on a runway that doesn't have ILS frequencies. So that's a good way of doing it. I'll cover that perhaps in a later video, and Direct 2 has many applications as well. I'll be using that tomorrow night. Be setting up pretty much a full flight plan. It's over an hour, the flight. Solely in the NXI, in the aircraft itself, not on the world map. So it should be exciting. So I'm just controlling my descent here. There's no PAPI lights that I can see. Try and get centre line Hodgson this time. Doesn't matter, as long as you hit the tarmac. All's good. Go on, that'll do. Envisioning landing right at the threshold here. It's a long runway, so no panic. Throttling back there and just floating over the runway. That will do. And we'll brake. And we'll brake completely and get outside. So there you go, that's my brief guide to OBS mode. Let me know your thoughts on the video. Give it a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. Remember, tomorrow night, everybody's welcome. If you can't fly, you're welcome to watch. Subscribe for more, many more Flight Simulator videos on the way, and I'll see you very soon.